Yeah.
Seems like we need to have
I
some
think it
better
was
definition.
Christina Hoff Sommers who was saying, we use the word trauma to describe everything from being lined up in front of a firing squad to being anxious about having lunch with somebody. And if that word describes both those things or all the different stuff that you're talking about, that word really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like how much of what we're saying is trauma is actually just anxiety? How much of what we're saying is trauma is actually just depression? Is it trauma? Like, and then it's like, oh, well, it is trauma and that's why they're depressed. Is it? Like, I don't know. It just seems like we don't, and maybe this is something that will be worked on. Maybe this is something new that our field is going to approach differently. I don't know. I'm just saying that right now, like the fact that we can't even define trauma, I think is an issue.
I heard one psychologist stating that watching a traumatic event on TV could be considered trauma. So like watching 9/11 on TV could be considered trauma. So basically everybody in America except for the Amish has PTSD. These such horrible definitions. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's certainly not helpful. I mean, how can you even work from that? Right. Like, and honestly, in my opinion, at least for me, it's a little invalidating. My trauma is the same as these guys in this room next to me. Like, I can tell you that sitting in that room, and I'm in a different place now, where we're talking about like almost 10 years ago. But as I'm sitting there listening to these guys tell their stories that are vastly different than what happened to me, it feels a little invalidating to be like, yeah, everybody's trauma is the same. What you experienced is the same as him. Pardon me. He wasn't in the explosion. I was in the explosion. You know what I mean? I feel like that is different. It's not to invalidate his feelings about what happened to him and his experience, but you certainly shouldn't invalidate people who were in it. It'd be like invalidating a victim of rape by somebody who knew somebody who got raped, right? Is their trauma the same?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's certain areas where we know this. Like if you had a situation where like a racial minority was uncomfortable like in the classroom, and I would say like, oh, I'm also uncomfortable in this situation. That'd be very clearly like, I as a white man could not understand your experience. Like that's offensive for you to try to pretend that those are the same, But for some reason with trauma, it doesn't have the same type of salience, I guess. And so you're just kind of allowed to throw that as a blanket term wherever.